Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. 3 photographic records of Peter, enslaved in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, around 1863, reveal deep marks linked to violence inflicted by an overseer on his back. After taking 2 months to recover from mistreatment, the man, also known as Gordon, escaped and enlisted in the Union Army. Widely circulated in the North during the conflict, these images became symbols of the brutality of slavery and the fight for freedom. Henry Wirz, former commander of the Confederate prison camp at Andersonville, is convicted in Washington on November 10, 1865. Before a crowded audience with the Capitol in the background, the officer receives the verdict for conspiracy and wrongdoing attributed to his time running the notorious Georgia facility. The wooden structure set up in the yard symbolizes the legal closing of one of the era's harshest chapters. An aerial view of the Andersonville prison camp in Georgia on August 17, 1864, reveals the scale of the Confederate facility. About 45,000 Union prisoners passed through the site, where extreme conditions led to a very high number of losses over time. The record highlights lack of resources, overcrowding, and health vulnerability amid clusters of improvised tents. The camp's precarious conditions reflect the harsh reality faced by detainees during the conflict. Medical teams perform an emergency surgical procedure at a field hospital set up during the Battle of Gettysburg. The record captures urgent care inside improvised tents under tree cover, where surgeons and assistants worked in harsh conditions. This practice was common for treating severe projectile wounds on battlefields, reflecting the logistical challenges of military medicine in the 19th century. The camp of the 150th Pennsylvania Infantry stretches across the hills of Belle Plaine, Virginia, in March 1862. Rows of white tents and supply wagons show the troop organization just 3 weeks before the Battle of Chancellorsville. Smoke from campfires rises among bare trees as soldiers prepare for the decisive tactical moves that would shape fighting in the Eastern Theater. Residents walk through the wreckage of Richmond, Virginia, in April 1865 after a massive fire consumed large parts of the former Confederate capital. The destruction happened during the evacuation by Southern troops, who burned supplies and bridges before Union forces under Ulysses S. Grant arrived. The ruins and debris come just 1 week before General Robert E. Lee's final surrender at Appomattox. Lewis Powell appears in this photograph in custody at the Washington Navy Yard. On April 14, 1865, he entered the home of Secretary of State William H. Seward as part of the plan organized by John Wilkes Booth to destabilize the federal government. The action happened the same night as the attack on President Lincoln. Captured days later, Powell was tried by a military tribunal and received the final judgment for his role in the case. A crowd of Union prisoners gathers near the main gate of the Andersonville prison camp in Georgia on August 17, 1864. Exhausted men wait in lines for the distribution of limited rations amid heavy restrictions and improvised tents. The record captures daily hardship at one of the conflict's harshest sites, where scarce resources and overcrowding shaped the prisoners' experience. Union soldiers organize embarkation at Yorktown during the Peninsula Campaign in Virginia. Between May and August 1862, the port buzzes with steamships like the Robert Morris and large stacks of cannonballs ready for transport. This logistics hub is vital to troop movement in the Eastern Theater, where naval infrastructure supports the war effort amid masts and heavy riverside activity. Smoke-stained ruins shape the landscape of Richmond's burned district in Virginia after a 9-month siege by Union forces. In April 1865, General Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army abandoned the shattered capital, leaving cannons and ammunition piled near the Canal Basin. In the background, the imposing capital still stands, contrasting with destroyed buildings along the water at the end of the civil conflict. A panoramic view of Columbia, South Carolina, from the Capitol shows the extent of destruction after Union Army occupation. In 1865, large areas of the city were reduced to damaged streets and debris, leaving empty roads and residential structures in complete ruin. The scene of urban desolation reflects the severe impact of the conflict's final campaigns, aimed at breaking administrative and logistics centers across Southern territory. John Wilkes Booth, a theater actor and Confederate sympathizer, planned an action against the American government to aid the Confederacy. On April 14, 1865, he attacked President Abraham Lincoln at Ford's Theater in Washington, leaving the episode as one of the era's most emblematic events. Afterward, Booth fled to a farm in northern Virginia, where he remained on the run for 12 days before Union forces found him, ending the search for the conspiracy's main figure. The grounds of the destroyed arsenal in Richmond, Virginia, show a trail of devastation, with shells and ammunition scattered across the ground in 1865. Among ruined brick walls and isolated chimneys, a horse-drawn wagon moves through the desolate scene, showing the impact of the final clashes on the Confederate capital. The image captures the breakdown of military and urban infrastructure after years of heavy fighting in the region. The ruins of a railroad workshop in Atlanta, Georgia, reveal the trail of destruction left after the summer 1864 campaign. Among collapsed stone walls, locomotives and cars sit motionless, symbolizing the breakdown of Southern transport under the advance of Major General William T. Sherman's troops. The city's occupation came before the march toward the port of Savannah, shaping a decisive phase in the conflict's logistics infrastructure. A storefront on Whitehall Street in Atlanta reveals the contradictions of city life in 1864. Between shops selling dishes and cigars, a sign advertises the buying and selling of people, a practice that shaped the local economy before Northern troops arrived. Sitting in front, a black Union soldier symbolizes the new order brought by war and the approaching end of an oppressive system. The military presence marks the shift from a besieged city to a place undergoing deep social change. The Price, Birch & Company establishment occupies number 283 Duke Street in Alexandria, Virginia, in August 1863. The brick building's facade shows an inscription identifying the place as a center of illegal human exploitation, revealing the economic structures that supported the era. Bars on the side windows and high walls reinforce the nature of the site, captured during a moment of urban transition under military occupation. African-American families crossed the Rappahannock River in Virginia, seeking freedom during General Pope's troop withdrawal in August 1862. The group uses ox and horse-drawn wagons to carry their few belongings while soldiers watch from the bank. In the background, a wooden bridge and dense vegetation emphasize the geographic hardships faced by those fleeing slavery in the midst of war. The United States Capitol shows its unfinished dome under cranes on the Washington skyline around 1863. In the foreground, Trinity Episcopal Church stands out at the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Indiana, as the city shows signs of urban growth amid the civil conflict. Although construction of the legislative building was paused early in the war, work resumed in the following years as a symbol of unity. The camp of the Tennessee Colored Battery sits on muddy ground in Johnsonville during 1864. Artillery pieces and wagons are scattered across the area as African-American soldiers stand on wooden platforms and among military tents. The scene captured during the Siege of Vicksburg shows logistics organization and the active presence of these troops in the Tennessee theater. Dry trees and railroad tracks add to the harsh look of the front. A group of freed people or escapees from slavery, known at the time as contraband, gathers in front of a wooden building at Cumberland Landing, Virginia. The record dated May 14, 1862, captures men, women, and children in a moment of transition and a search for protection near Union lines. This legal term was used to prevent individuals from being returned to their former captors. African Americans prepare large piles of cotton for processing in a cotton gin at the Smith Plantation on Port Royal Island, South Carolina, in 1862. The group works in front of rough wooden buildings while a man watches the outdoor labor. The record documents the continuation of agricultural work in the South during the war's second year, showing production and survival routines amid the conflict. 3 Confederate soldiers, known by the term Johnny Reb, pose as prisoners after being captured at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. They lean against a log structure, carrying their few belongings and supplies in bags and blankets tied to their bodies. Their worn expressions reflect the impact of one of the American Civil War's most decisive clashes, showing the precarious state of Southern troops. The federal ironclad United States ship Galena shows battle scars after facing Confederate batteries at Drury's Bluff on the James River around 1862. Heavy guns stick out through the side ports as crew members gather on the upper deck under the watch of officers. The record details the ship's reinforced design, built to withstand enemy fire during naval operations in Virginia. A Union sentry watches the Yorktown fortifications in Virginia during the Peninsula Campaign in 1862. The defensive system includes heavy gun batteries set behind gabions and earthworks to protect troops from opposing pressure. Wooden ladders provide access to trench crests, while the dugout ground shows the military ingenuity needed to sustain the strategic siege during the advance toward Richmond. Recovering soldiers rest in the shade of large trees near Mary's Heights in Fredericksburg after the intense fighting of the Battle of Spotsylvania in 1864. The Virginia scene shows fighters in forced rest, some lying on planks or on the ground, receiving medical care that reflects the physical toll of the conflict. The improvised organization of medical support highlights the logistical challenges faced during the era's military campaigns. Symmetrical stacks of cannonballs fill the yard of an arsenal in Washington, possibly in the District of Columbia during the American Civil War. The careful organization of the shells shows the scale of industrial production and logistics needed to supply battlefronts. Among the Capitol's trees and lawns, civilians and soldiers moved near ammunition stockpiles that would feed artillery in the decisive years of the conflict. Confederate troops are seen at a distance of 1 mile, positioned on the far side of a destroyed bridge in Fredericksburg, Virginia. The record was made by Union photographer Matthew Brady, capturing heavily damaged infrastructure and the presence of enemy fighters within the city scene. The image documents tensions and logistical obstacles faced during military movements in the region. The wards of Harewood General Hospital in Washington were busy during the difficult year of 1864. Rows of beds arranged under hanging sheets held wounded fighters seeking recovery during the United States' largest internal conflict. Opened in September 1862, the facility served as a key center of medical care until it closed in May 1866. Wooden interiors and large central stoves warmed the capital's winter days. A pontoon bridge stretches across the water toward Petersburg, Virginia, in April 1865. Built from lined-up boats and wooden planks, the structure allowed fast movement of troops and supplies during the conflict's final stages. Soldiers seated along the edge looked toward an industrial landscape where smokestacks and warehouses shaped the skyline. Military engineering was vital for overcoming natural obstacles in Virginia terrain. Nurse Ann Bell helps recovering fighters at a Union hospital around 1863. The black and white record captures the medical care setting during the civil conflict, with soldiers in improvised beds under patterned blankets and crutches in the background. This female service was essential for maintaining health and emotional support on battlefronts, shaping the history of military nursing in the country. A solitary grave rests at the base of a leafless tree at Antietam in the state of Maryland. The record made in September 1862 captures a quiet scene after one of the American Civil War's most notable clashes, as some soldiers rest or stand guard beneath twisted branches. The small marker in the ground remains a silent witness to the human losses suffered on those battlefields. Black soldiers man a guard post near the Dutch Gap Canal in Virginia in November 1864. Positioned beside a wooden structure, they used their rifles to watch enemy movement during the Civil War. Their presence was essential to Union operations, showing the courage and active role of African Americans in the military effort for abolition and national unity. In March 1862, near Bull Run, Virginia, United States, a man kneels in tribute to losses near Sudley Church. Leaf-covered ground and bare trees suggest winter's end, with subtle marks of conflict nearby. The photo records mourning after the battles of 1861 and the memory preserved early in the American Civil War. The ironclad Confederate States ship Stonewall, built in Bordeaux, France in 1864, represents Confederate naval efforts during the American Civil Conflict. At about 1,532 tons, the vessel crossed the Atlantic toward Havana, but when it reached Cuba in May 1865, the hostilities had already ended. Spanish authorities took possession of the ship before handing it over to the United States government, marking the end of its military journey under the Confederate flag. Confederate General Stonewall Jackson, known as a sharp tactician, took part in several military campaigns during the conflict. During the Battle of Chancellorsville, he suffered an accidental injury from fire by his own troops, seriously damaging one arm. Days later, breathing complications worsened his condition, ending his life and raising his image to a celebrated figure in southern states. John Lawrence Burns, known as the Old Hero of Gettysburg, appears in this 1863 image seated on his porch with crutches and a musket. At 70 years old, this Pennsylvania civilian chose to follow Union troops during the Battle of Gettysburg. Fighting as a volunteer, he was injured during the action and ended up left behind in the field during a retreat, but he recovered and made it back safely. Confederate soldiers march in tight formation through the streets of Frederick, Maryland, during the occupation of enemy territory in 1862. The record captures the troop movement from an elevated vantage point, highlighting the sign of a local fabric and clothing store. The Southern Army's passage through the city reflects a moment of strategic incursion onto Northern ground during the early phases of the Civil War. Inside the command tent at Antietam in the state of Maryland, United States, President Abraham Lincoln talks with General George B. McClellan between September and October 1862, after the battle on September 17, 1862. On the table are maps, papers, and campaign items used to organize orders, supplies, and movements. The meeting takes place at the Union Army camp in open country and was recorded as part of the documentation of the American Civil War. The 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, poses for a portrait focused on his face and shoulders on February 5, 1865. Taken by Alexander Gardner, the photograph captures the leader's lined features at a time of extreme political and military tension just months before the Civil War ended. The documentary image emphasizes the statesman's calm, tired gaze, becoming one of the most iconic representations of his time in the White House. Abraham Lincoln appears without a hat at the center of the crowd during his historic Gettysburg Address in Pennsylvania. The record, dated November 19, 1863, captures the president among officials and citizens at the site of one of the conflict's most decisive battles. His brief words became a landmark of political rhetoric, reinforcing ideals of freedom and the preservation of democracy in a deeply divided nation. General Robert E. Lee poses for Matthew Brady's camera in Richmond, Virginia, shortly after the American Civil Conflict ends. Appointed Commander-in-Chief of Confederate forces, he led multiple battlefronts against Union troops over the years. His surrender to General Ulysses Grant on April 9, 1865 at the Appomattox Courthouse set the definitive mark for the end of hostilities nationwide. Ulysses S. Grant served as commanding general of the Union Army during the American Civil War. His strong popularity in northern states after the conflict was key to his political rise, securing his victory in the 1868 United States presidential election. Military prestige earned on the battlefield helped him win another term 4 years later, and he was re-elected in 1872. Frederick Douglass, born into slavery in Maryland, escaped while young and became a central figure in American history. Known for his powerful speaking, he emerged as an influential social reformer and a leader of the abolitionist movement in the 19th century. This record, captured around 1879, reflects the maturity of the thinker who devoted his life to civil rights and social justice. Harriet Tubman, born into slavery, gained her freedom by escaping to Philadelphia in 1849. During the civil conflict, she played a crucial strategic role by providing valuable intelligence information to Union forces. This record, dated between 1860 and 1875, preserves the image of the activist who became one of the most emblematic figures in the fight against oppression in American history. Robert Smalls, born into slavery in South Carolina, carried out a daring escape on May 12, 1862, by piloting the Confederate States ship planner toward the Union blockade. Disguised in the captain's uniform, he rescued his family and other crew members before turning the vessel over to federal forces. After hostilities ended, his political path led him to serve in the United States House of Representatives. Rose O'Neal Greenhow, known as Wild Rose, poses with her daughter under guard at the old Capitol in Washington. Linked to Confederate intelligence, she used her social connections to pass information to the South until she was held in custody in 1861. After her release and work as a representative in Europe, Greenhow died in October 1864, when her boat overturned while trying to escape a Union ship off North Carolina. Jefferson Davis, former Secretary of War and Senator from Mississippi, served as President of the Confederate States of America from 1861 to 1865. After the conflict ended, he was captured and charged on political grounds, remaining in custody for 2 years until he was released on bail. The case against him ended in 1869, and he lived 2 more decades before dying at 81, remaining a central figure in Southern history. William Mahone, a civil engineer and railroad executive, strongly supported Southern secession. In 1861, still a civilian, he helped arrange the capture of the Gosport shipyard in Portsmouth, Virginia, by misleading federal troops with the sound of an empty passenger train. After that, he became a Confederate Army colonel and later served as a United States Senator in 1881, representing Virginia in post-war politics. William Tecumseh Sherman, a graduate of the West Point Military Academy, rose as a major Union Army general during the civil conflict. His military career is marked by the strategic capture of Atlanta, Georgia, which set the stage for the famous March to the Sea. During the month-long push to the coast, his troops inflicted severe damage on civilian and military infrastructure until the final capture of Savannah. John Sappington Marmaduke served as a Confederate general during the American Civil War, standing out in cavalry operations in the Trans-Mississippi Theater. A West Point graduate, his military career included fighting at Shiloh and raids into enemy territory. After the conflict and a period of exile, he returned to the United States, entered politics, and was elected governor of Missouri, serving until he died in December 1887. General George Armstrong Custer built a strong military reputation during the American Civil Conflict as a cavalry commander. After hostilities ended, he was sent west to take part in the so-called Indian Wars. His career ended in 1876 during the Battle of Little Bighorn in Montana. The studio portrait preserves his familiar image with a hat and crossed arms. James H. Harris of Maryland, a member of Company B of the 38th United States Colored Troops Regiment, poses for a record captured between 1864 and 1898. He was part of the select group of 23 black Union soldiers who showed exceptional bravery during Civil War combat. For his performance and distinction on the battlefield, Harris received the Medal of Honor. Federal soldiers pose in front of a log cabin used as a mess hall at the Army of the Potomac Winter Headquarters near Fredericksburg, Virginia. Among them stands a formerly enslaved man who now serves as a uniformed soldier and receives regular pay. Wooden barrels and cooking tools surround the entrance of the rough structure, showing the troops' everyday supply setup in the field. A long line of federal troops stands in formation before rows of white tents at Cumberland Landing, Virginia, in May 1862. In the foreground of the camp on the Pamunkey River, a portable forge and an anvil set on a barrel show constant upkeep of equipment and horseshoes. Horses and wagons fill the packed ground as soldiers handle daily tasks, highlighting the scale of Union logistics. Federal cavalry troops crossed the shallow waters of Sudley Ford, Virginia, in March 1862, revisiting the site of the Battle of First Bull Run. In the foreground, 4 children watch the military movement from a muddy bank as mounted soldiers gather near a low stone wall and wooden fences in the background. The record captures the continued presence of Union forces in the area months after the first clash in 1861. A long column of Federal Army wagons winds through the streets of Petersburg, Virginia, marking the arrival of the first supplies in April 1865. The freight wagons with white covers move in a steady line past wooden fences and brick buildings under the watch of mounted guards. In the distance, church towers dominate the skyline of the newly occupied city, signaling the Union's final advance. Soldiers of the 50th New York Engineers Regiment work hard building a strategic road on the south bank of the North Anna River. Near Jericho Mills, Virginia, the group uses hand tools to level rough ground under the sun on May 24, 1864. In the background, a pontoon bridge allows wagons and supplies to cross, showing the logistical effort needed to sustain troop advances during the conflict. Herman Haupt, a West Point graduate in 1835, crosses the Potomac River in a one-person pontoon boat of his own invention. A career civil engineer, he played a vital logistics role as Chief of Construction and Transportation for United States military railroads during the conflict. The equipment seen in the record, photographed between 1860 and 1865, was designed specifically for reconnaissance and bridge inspection missions. Fredericksburg Baptist Church in Virginia shows the scars of 2 major clashes that devastated the city during the conflict. Photographed on May 20, 1864 from the Sanitary Commission Depot, the record reveals the tower's imposing architecture above an empty lot filled with wagons and horses. The building endures as a landmark of local resilience in a scene shaped by systematic destruction of urban infrastructure. The river ironclad United States ship Essex floats on the Mississippi River in March 1863. Weighing 1,000 tons, the vessel was converted from a steam ferry to serve the Western Gunboat Flotilla starting in 1861. After being transferred to the Navy the next year, the ship played an important tactical role in the capture of Baton Rouge and Port Hudson. Its armored hull and twin smokestacks mark the evolution of modern naval warfare. Union soldiers pose beside a 300-pound Parrott rifle with a damaged muzzle on Morris Island, South Carolina. The heavy weapon failed during siege operations carried out between July and August 1863, revealing the constant risks of using large-caliber artillery. The damaged gun remains on its metal carriage among earthen fortifications as troops wait for new orders in the coastal sector. Officers of the 1st Connecticut Heavy Artillery pose beside 13-inch coastal mortars at Federal Battery No. 4. The record was made near Yorktown, Virginia in May 1862. These large artillery pieces were essential for siege operations, allowing heavy shells to be fired in high arcs against enemy fortifications along the coast during the Civil War. Union troops of Benson's Battery hold a guard position during intense fighting against Confederate forces under General Thomas Stonewall Jackson. The clash took place at Fair Oaks near Richmond, Virginia, between May 31 and June 1, 1862. Soldiers take positions behind wooden breastworks and artillery pieces on higher ground, showing defensive readiness in the battle also known as Seven Pines. Soldiers of the 6th Corps of the Army of the Potomac wait in trenches before the attack on Marye's Heights during the Second Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. The record dated May 1863 during the Chancellorsville Campaign captures the unit preparing for combat. Although some catalogs link the image to the Siege of Petersburg in 1864, it remains a visual document of infantry and field operations. Confederate cannons remain lined up in earth and timber batteries in Atlanta's defensive fortifications between 1863 and 1864. Sandbag-reinforced structures protected heavy artillery pieces from the Union advance into Georgia. A lone lookout watches the cleared horizon where land was stripped to widen the field of view. The defense system represented the city's final stand. In May 1862 in Yorktown, Virginia, United States, soldiers organized an artillery area during the American Civil War. In front, stacks of cannonballs and ammunition boxes are lined up while rows of cannons and mortars fill the ground beside tents and fences. In the distance, masts and vessels on the York River show logistic support for the Siege of Yorktown, an early stage of the Peninsula Campaign. The scene includes men on watch and guns being readied. Cargo boats and steamships fill the Pamunkey River in Virginia during 1862. The site, known as White House Landing, served as a crucial logistics base for the Union Army during the Peninsula Campaign. Heavy river traffic of supplies and military equipment supported troop advances into enemy territory. The packed earth shoreline shows the scale of the infrastructure built for the war effort. Allan Pinkerton rides his horse near Sharpsburg during the American Civil War. As head of the Union Intelligence Service, he coordinates espionage and security while troops organize among the camp tents in September 1862. The scene reveals the era's military logistics, with horses and temporary structures supporting strategic command amid the tactical challenges of the conflict in Maryland. A group of men from Company B of the United States Engineers Battalion poses for an official photograph in August 1864. Camped near Petersburg, Virginia, the soldiers wear mixed uniforms and serious expressions while resting among the vegetation. The technical work of these battalions was essential for maintaining infrastructure and logistics operations during the region's final campaigns. Union soldiers inspect passes along the Potomac River near Georgetown, Washington in 1865. The activity takes place at a strategic crossing point where armed guards check civilian and military papers to control movement in the federal capital during the Civil War's final months. The scene shows waterfront infrastructure and the strict oversight that defined internal security in the District of Columbia. Officers of the 69th New York Infantry pose beside heavy cannons at Fort Corcoran in Virginia with Colonel Michael Corcoran. The unit, made up mostly of Irish immigrants, mans fortifications that protect the capital during the conflict. The record details artillery weapons and official uniforms during a pause in military activity, showing the readiness of Union troops. Cannons covered with white tarps sit on the terrace of the Tennessee State Capitol in Nashville during 1864. The view from the building's marble steps shows ornate lampposts with statues at the base, while the city stretches behind under the Union control. This elevated position served as a strategic point for defense and observation in a major logistics center in the Western Theater. A steam locomotive and freight cars filled the Atlanta Rail Depot in 1864 under the watch of soldiers standing atop the trains. On the right, the brick building of the Daily Intelligencer newspaper stands out as an information hub during the city's siege. The panoramic record captures transportation infrastructure vital to the war effort in Georgia. Horses and moving figures show tense daily life at this logistics crossroads. On the coast of Charleston, South Carolina, United States, in 1860, a young powder runner poses beside a cannon aboard the United States ship New Hampshire. Thick ropes, crates, and support parts appear on deck, showing the era's naval gunnery work. The runner's job was to carry cartridges and help prepare each shot. The photo records military routine on ships in the late 1850s. Rough log and earth huts make up a captured Confederate camp outside Petersburg, Virginia. In June 1864, soldiers and civilians move among improvised structures that offered fragile shelter amid dense pine growth. The record details the reality of frontline life during the long siege, showing troops adapting to field conditions as Southern defensive lines began to give way under constant Union pressure. The fortifications of Fort Sumter in South Carolina display the Confederate flag after the intense clash that began on April 12, 1861. The 34-hour action ended with the surrender of Union forces the next day, marking the start of the American Civil War. Cannons placed on the damaged walls look over the inner courtyard as the occupation continues until the federal government retakes it for good on February 22, 1865. Daily life at the camp of the 31st Pennsylvania Infantry, later designated as the 82nd, reveals the complexity of military life at the Queen Farm near Fort Slocum in Washington. During 1861, entire families followed regiments in the District of Columbia, sharing tent space and household items amid troop mobilization. This coexistence between soldiers and civilians shaped the Civil War's early logistics routines. 4 sturdy horses pull the mail wagon bound for the Army of the Potomac headquarters in Falmouth, Virginia. The record captured in March 1863 reveals essential logistics for military communication during the American Civil War. Under the wagon's canvas cover, a driver watches the rough ground while dry trees in the background shape the bleak landscape of a camp waiting for orders for the next moves. A relaxed scene titled Confusion at Headquarters shows Army of the Potomac officers enjoying a leisure moment near Falmouth, Virginia. The record made in April 1863 shows soldiers play acting a clash with sabers and bottles among toppled chairs. This kind of playful interaction was common for easing daily tension in camp during breaks between American Civil War campaigns. Artist Alfred R. Ward sits on rocks while sketching during the Battle of Gettysburg in July 1863. As an illustrator for Harper's Weekly, Ward followed Union troops to visually record American Civil War fighting. The photograph was taken by Timothy H. O'Sullivan and was originally part of a stereoscopic view. This kind of field documentation was essential for bringing detailed images of camps and battles to Northern audiences. General George Stoneman appears at a military camp near Fair Oaks in June 1862. A career Union Army officer, he held command roles on multiple battlefronts during the American Civil War. After the conflict, Stoneman went to Arizona and later California, where he entered public life. In 1882, he was elected governor of the state and served a 4-year term in administration. Mortimer Dormer Leggett served as a major general in the Union Army during the American Civil War, the period when this portrait was recorded between 1860 and 1865. Before the conflict, he worked as a lawyer and educator, but his military leadership stood out in key battles such as the Siege of Vicksburg and the Atlanta Campaign. His path reflects the shift of civilian professionals into strategic command on the battlefronts. Adelbert Ames served as a Union Army general during the civil conflict, leading troops on multiple battlefronts. After hostilities ended, he played key political roles in Mississippi during Reconstruction, serving as military governor, senator, and later civilian governor. After a long life, he died in 1933 at 97 years old. Francis C. Barlow began his Civil War service as an enlisted Union soldier and reached the rank of general by the end of the conflict. Despite being wounded multiple times, he survived the fighting and went on to a prominent public career in New York. He held major political and legal roles, serving as Secretary of State and also as Attorney General of New York State in the years after the war. James Scott Negley of Pennsylvania began his role in the conflict as a brigadier general in the state militia, commanding troops in multiple engagements. After his division narrowly avoided disaster at the Battle of Chickamauga, he was removed from operational command. Before his official discharge from the Army in January 1865, Negley still served in several military administrative assignments. Union General Isaac Thurther Stevens sits on a porch in South Carolina in March 1862. Formerly the first governor of Washington Territory, he did not return from the Battle of Chantilly on September 1, 1862. While raising the colors of his former regiment and urging his troops under the St. Andrew's Cross banner, he was wounded in action, abruptly ending a promising military career. Brigadier General Robert Houston Milroy, a Union Army officer, looks toward the horizon in a studio portrait. He became widely known for his defeat at the Second Battle of Winchester in 1863. After his military career, Milroy served as Superintendent of Indian Affairs in Washington Territory. He died in 1890 in Olympia at 73 years old. The young E. Demon faces the camera in a studio portrait taken by photographer Matthew Brady. The record is part of the large collection of portraits made during the second half of the 19th century, preserving facial features and clothing typical of that period. Brady, famous for documenting people and events of the American civil conflict, immortalized civilians and soldiers under lighting that highlights expressive detail and the era's style. The young Miss Walton looks to the side in a portrait taken by renowned photographer Matthew Brady. The record is part of the extensive visual documentation produced during the second half of the 19th century, preserving facial features and civilian fashion details of the era. Brady, known for historic photographs of the civil conflict and influential figures, captured individuals in a style that favors clarity and restraint. John Henry poses in front of a tent at the headquarters of the 3rd Army Corps, within the force known as the Army of the Potomac. The scene photographed in October 1863 shows camp conditions and the daily logistics support routine during the conflict. Serving as an attendant, his presence reflects the wide range of roles behind the scenes of 19th century warfare in the United States. A Union Army officer whose identity remains unknown faces Matthew Brady's lens in a studio portrait. The image is part of the extensive visual record produced during the American civil conflict, capturing the face and distinctive uniform of Northern fighters. Portraits like this were common for preserving the memory of service members who fought on battlefronts from the 1860s into the 1870s. In 1877, at Fort Lincoln, in what was then Dakota Territory, United States, infantry soldiers posed beside a Gatling gun mounted on an artillery carriage with large wheels, with wagons and equipment behind them. Set on the west bank of the Missouri River across from the Bismarck area, the fort served as a garrison point protecting routes, convoys, and regional communications. The record was made 1 year after the Battle of Little Bighorn, fought in June 1876. Ambrose Burnside stood out as a Union general during the American Civil War, leading campaigns in places such as North Carolina and Tennessee. Outside the battlefield, his political career included serving as governor of Rhode Island and as a United States senator. Beyond public service, his most curious legacy is aesthetic, since the distinctive style of his facial hair gave rise to the term sideburns, adapted from his last name. Abraham Lincoln appears surrounded by Army officers at a military camp set up at Antietam in the state of Maryland. The record made by photographer Alexander Gardner in October 1862 captures the president visiting the battlefield shortly after the clash. Standing at the center and wearing his signature stovepipe hat, Lincoln watches the tent layout and the routine of federal troops during the campaign. A solitary man watches water flowing from a Confederate mill in Petersburg, Virginia, in May 1865. The brick industrial structure with many windows stands beside the waterfall in dense vegetation, symbolizing Southern infrastructure at the end of the American Civil War. The quiet scene on the rocks contrasts with the region's recent history of siege and intense battles shortly before the final surrender.